All right,
Water.
everyone, welcome back to Leading with Grace. I am so excited to have this particular guest talk to us today about something that I heard her talk about on the LDS Life Coach Directory podcast with Heather Rackham. And when I heard this interview, I just knew it was something that I wanted to share with my audience. And with women in general, because I think that she has such a profound and impactful message to all of us. And so I want to all introduce you to Coach Jody Long, and I'm going to have her introduce herself as to who she coaches and what we're going to be talking about today. So, hi, Jody.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for
Hello.
having me.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
I am not a period coach. There are period coaches, though, by the way, which is really fascinating. Excuse me, job. But I focus on spiritually minded women of various faiths, but tend to have a faith is a big part of their life, whether it was past, present, or they're kind of figuring things out, right? Do they want to leave or stay?
Yeah.
Faith is a part of their lives. And I specialize in overwhelm, and a lot of my clients have ADHD as well because those two go hand in hand. So I coach pretty much any woman, but that's the majority of my clients. What else do you want to know?
So, all right. So, in this most recent interview that you did with Heather Rackham, it was actually last year. You were talking about the menstrual cycle and how we can you like how this can be challenging for any woman going through overwhelm, whether you have ADHD or not, and
Yeah.
especially with women going through separation and divorce. I mean, it can be so easy to wake up to overwhelm, go through the day in overwhelm, go to bed in overwhelm, right? And the last thing that
Right.
we want to deal with is our period. And
Yeah.
so as I was listening to your message about how we can use this to our advantage, I love that different angle that you were talking about. So can you talk about that and how you just came to this aha moment?
Yeah, I actually, and I think it is highly applicable to your clientele because I can only
Yeah.
imagine what that overwhelm is like. All these responsibilities, feeling like you're alone. Um, but I think it's applicable to most people. Um, for example, everyone has or knows someone who has a period, right? Whether it be
Yeah.
your sister, your mother, well, and your wife or partner or whatever. So it really affects not only women, but their families and society as a whole. So it's not just about period, it's about being aware of how our cycles can benefit our lives as individuals, families, and societies. Because if you think about it, when do you think someone had their first, what was the first period that ever happened on the planet?
It would most likely be Eve.
The first woman.
Yeah,
And
the very first woman.
that was a long time ago. And And it's so amazing to me that we live in a society where it's still taboo. Like we're sending people, well, we sent people to the moon a long time ago. Now we're sending people into space, and it's soon going to be something you can pay to do.
Yeah.
And I just got an electric car not that long ago, and it's awesome. It's super cool.
Yeah.
But the thing that has been happening since the beginning of like humankind is still taboo.
Yeah.
And even us as women perpetuate it, not intentionally, but like we make it light of it, or we kind of make fun of it. And it's just so fascinating to me that that's something that's just a big part of our lives. I think on average, a woman has 40 years of her life with a
Yeah.
period. That's a lot.
That is.
So I think it was actually, I believe, on Jenna Kutcher's podcast. I heard her interviewing someone about periods, and that kind of just triggered me. I'm like, why have I never thought about how I can use this information to benefit me? Because we all know it affects us a great deal.
Yeah.
Physical, mental, emotional ramifications that come along with this cycle. But if you think about the way, at least here in the United States and in a lot of modern, countries, we are set up to kind of be like 9 to 5 working. You do the same thing Monday through Friday, and then you have kind of your own routine for the weekends too. But it's supposed to look the same,
Mm.
right? And I think it's a subconscious expectation that we have because intellectually we can understand that maybe we could switch that up a little bit, but we don't because there's this subconscious expectation. You suck or you're not very good if you're inconsistent from one week to the next. But that's
Yeah.
what makes sense to a woman. And I don't say this to be like ultra against men. That's not what it is. But society was clearly not set up by women the way this is set up. And this has really detrimental effects to a woman because of all the expectations we already have from society, from church culture. We have this constant expectation that we should be this perform the same every day. And it's just, if you take a step back and you kind of go up on this hill of curiosity and you're looking down at your life and you take it from not just week by week, but you kind of look at it month by month, there is consistency, but it's cyclical. And even, I
Yeah.
recognize that women have hysterectomies, women have erratic periods. Some women don't have periods. Some people have endometriosis. I have 5 sisters, no brothers. So I've seen, women, all kinds of things. So, but if we can take that information just to make our lives a little bit easier, why
Yeah.
are we not doing that? Why isn't
Yeah.
everybody, and why aren't we teaching that to our girls right away
Yeah.
so that they understand here's this amazing information you can use to make your life better.
Yeah. Well, let's take a step back because I love what you said about having some expectation, external and even internal, that we should be the same. We should be consistent. Okay. So talk to me about that. Like, why are we adopting this expectation of consistency? And how can this be a benefit, but how can this also be detrimental?
Right. So, like I said, I mean, it's just, we're born into this world. We're born with specific genes and specific environments. One of the environments, us in the United States, and everybody across the world has their own environment, a societal expectation they're born into. And it doesn't have to be someone directly saying you need to be the same every single day. But
Yeah.
what I see in my clients is them coming to me, for instance,
Yeah.
and being like, oh, I started on my goal and I was doing so good this week. And then I stuck with it this week. And this week I just could not make myself do it. And
Mm,
they'll stop trying. Their brain tells them you are not a consistent person. But what if they were like, it makes sense that this week I was highly motivated because I was at this place in my cycle. And this week it was a little rough, but I could make myself do it. And I recognized that that's the same every month. And then this week of my cycle, usually I'm really depressed. My brain is just busier and telling me all these negative things. And I hurt. When someone's hurt, what do you do for them? You compassion and you take care of them.
yeah.
And you don't have the same expectations.
Yeah.
And it's like women need so much. They have to like earn their downtime or earn self-care. That's another thing we've been taught. But if you
Oh,
know that this
so
week
good.
I'm going to take care of myself. Oh,
Yeah.
this is the week where instead of this is the week where I'm really, really sad and angry, which should be acknowledged as well.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the week I take extra care of myself. I get the pedicure, or I have a foot bath, or I buy, you know, a bath pillow. That's kind of weird, but that was on the top of my mind. I just bought a bath pillow that's like the whole length of the tub. Okay. Anyway, so get one of those. Or anything that and here's something I want all women to know. Tell your kids, oh no, it's mom's self-care week.
Yeah.
Can you bring me my drink? Can you bring
Yeah.
me women have a hard time doing that.
Oh,
But
that is
kids love their
so true.
moms.
I know.
Yeah.
And okay, and as you're telling me this, I am like thinking about like
Mm-hmm.
my quote unquote cycle. And I'm not just talking about like my menstrual cycle. That's when you hit 40 somewhat, it does weird things. Mine is just weird, you guys. I'm just putting
Yeah.
it
No,
out there.
I hit 40 this in May and I'm yeah, I'm starting to experience that. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's well, now I hit 50 and I'm just like, yeah, it's still weird. But okay, but this is what I realized, like the whole culture of consistency. It's like, okay, one week I'm totally on my business, right? Like I'm like checking things off my to-do list, I'm getting things done, I've accomplished stuff. And then the next week, it's like, where did that go? I'm like,
Yes.
where did that drive go? And then, but then so like what's going on in my brain is like, okay, as I look back, I'm like, okay, so this problem came up, I had to deal with insurance on this one, and then the car got totaled, and then I needed to like sign this, send this off to UPS, get all this done, and yet I'm still thinking, but I should still be producing like last week. Like this is kind of like
Yes.
what's coming to me.
Yeah.
And so now as you're talking and I'm listening to you, I'm just like, why am I buying into the fact that each week should look exactly the same? Like sometimes there's one week where it's all family, it's all kid, it's all like home stuff. Like, can I give myself some room to like go through that cycle, right?
Yes, that's the bigger lesson. You nailed it. Is
Yeah.
like because people are like, well, I'm male, I don't have a cycle, or I don't have a cycle anymore, or mine's erratic. The
Yeah.
message is this: as you reflect back,
Mm-hmm.
if you what you have a lot of proof of is that you always get yourself back together and get back on track when you can. And so if we have this
Yeah.
thought in our back pocket all the time that it's like, one of my favorite thoughts is, this makes sense that this is happening. If you have the thought like, this makes sense because I had all these additional things
Yeah.
and I'm really proud of myself for dealing with it and I need self-care now. But
Yes.
which brings into play that other belief that we have to earn our
Yes. Oh my
downtime, and
gosh.
you absolutely do not. I like to think of right, I sometimes call it righteous rebellion or positive rebellion, which is a woman taking control of her life and being like, I am just going to shamelessly take care of myself. Because if you think about, like, this really occurred to me, and this is applicable, I believe, that my oldest is a girl. I have a daughter who just started college and two boys. And one day I was looking at her and I just had this thought: when she's a mom, do I want her to have to earn self care? Do I want her to have to earn
Oh my gosh.
fun and joy?
Yes.
And I
Oh.
was like, no. And who's she going to learn that from?
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh.
yes. And so, like, when I find myself maybe laying and reading for hours, then I'm like, oh, so proud of myself. You don't
I
need to do
know.
anything else. None of that matters. None of it. And I when I started practicing doing this with myself, which of course I still have a hard time with it sometimes,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
I'll when I first started doing this, my kids were younger, I would say, "Oh, mommy is not taking good care of herself. It's time to have some self-care." And I would make it kind of obvious, right? And they would sit with me or whatever. Because I had to have it, like, then it could form a new neural pathway in my brain easier. The more I'm vocalizing it, the more I'm doing it. If it just stays in my head.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, I think that's one of the messages of this whole menstrual cycle thing is, can you stand back and say, why am I not taking care of myself?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna practice. I think all what I tell my clients all the time is, this human experience is an experiment. Be a social scientist and step back and be like, what, I wonder if I could just locate or identify times where I need more self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say to someone else, right? We say that a lot. Like,
Yes.
yeah. So that's one of the many things that I think is
Oh,
applicable.
I love that. And I love how you're modeling that for your daughter. And what also came up for me is that I have two daughters, um, 17 and 13, I think. And there are times where I think they should be doing homework. They should be doing something productive.
Mm-hmm.
But just but I don't like I think it, but I don't really verbalize it. And so just
Mm-hmm.
hearing you, I'm just like, wait a minute. I want
Mm-hmm.
them to give themselves permission. Actually, I don't even want them to think they have to give themselves permission to just give themselves a break. Like that's just actually a natural part of their
Yes.
life that maybe we didn't grow up with, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But now this generation is like, they have their homework time, and then when they're done, they can do their own screen time or do whatever they want. But it's
Yeah,
they're just taking care of like their own needs.
exactly.
I'm just that's kind of like blowing my mind right now. It's like, oh my gosh, it's interesting how the internal expectations that I have, that I'm recognizing and
Sure.
breaking, I am somehow still putting that onto my daughters.
Yes, but you're
And
breaking it,
so,
right?
yeah. And so I'm like kind of like pulling, now I'm just like stepping back and like, okay, what's really going on? Can I just slow down and accept
Yeah.
just my life as what it is?
I have a tip for that. If it
Okay.
might help someone who's listening, it helped me.
Oh,
You
I know
never
it
know,
will.
right?
That's why you're here.
Okay. So, um, you know, I don't know, maybe it was Brooke Castillo. I don't remember who it was, but a long time ago, um, she shared a story that she and her husband were driving, and he's like, I really hope the kids cleaned up the house while we were gone. She's like, why are you hoping that? Like, it's probably not going to happen. They're teenagers. And it just
I know.
occurred to me. So like when your brain is going to or I started doing this when I would notice I think my kids should be doing something, but then my intellectual brain would say, they're kids, let them be kids, right?
Yeah.
I would say out loud, especially when I was frustrated that they were doing something, making a mess or whatever, I'd say, what are you, 5 years old? And it just reminded me they're 5 years old. Or I still do that. Like if my 12-year-old or my 16-year-old's doing something, like the other day, I told them like a million times to wash the dishes. And I was like, what are you, 16? And it just reminds me in my mind, they're 16, they're kids. Don't take away be patient. This
Yeah.
is exactly what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
love
something I do.
that. That's so, so good. It's just to remember for me, they're just kids. Like there'll
Yeah.
be a time and a place where, hey, they'll get their own place, doing their own laundry if they want, doing their own dishes if they want. And I don't have to be there. It's all good. So I love
Yeah,
that. I
exactly.
love like I don't know about about my listeners, but I personally am just having a lot of shifts in my thinking, and just really like taking the observer point of view, like you said, kind of going up on the hill and just looking down with curiosity as a social scientist as to like my own cycle, not only like what happens during my menstrual cycle, but just my life in general. Like one week I'll be on with my business, another
Mhm.
week it's going to be like all family, like things will happen that I need to take care of, another week it might be back to business, like, and like can I just accept that that's just my life and there's no shame in that? Because like
Right.
my knee-jerk reaction is I didn't produce,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like you were saying, like we have to earn our like downtime.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Jody before this call about this book that I read called The Red Tent by Anita Diamant, I think. I'm not sure how you
Yeah.
say that. So it's a super quick, easy read. If you haven't read it, it is really a fascinating take on the biblical story of Dinah, who was the only recorded daughter of Jacob and Leah. And they talk about the red tent, which is what the book is called. And what the red tent was, it was a tent. I don't know if it was, you know, and again, this is not historically accurate, but whenever the woman, and this is specifically just talking about the family of Jacob, when the women were going through the menstrual cycle, they would go into the red tent. And of course, to the men, it's like taboo, right? Like they want nothing to do with blood. But for the women, it was such a relief because they got relief from cooking for the men and all the kids. They got relief from child care and child rearing. They got relief from cleaning, from any and all the chores. They just were in the tent for 7 days.
Major self-care.
I know, like major self care. And even though this might not be historically accurate, I just wonder if we need to really consider creating our own individual red tent sanctuary when
Yes.
we are going through our menstrual
I love
cycle,
that so
right?
much. Yes, that's what I'm saying. And that is amazing. I didn't even know this book existed. But like I said, I have five sisters, and it just makes me visualize like your own little tribe of validation and story sharing and comfort. And I don't know what it was like you said,
Yeah.
but can we create that for ourselves and with, unabashedly, and I think we can. And I would like to say that I think that we are actually way more productive when we're happy. So when we take care of ourselves, it sounds so cliche, right? Like, take care of yourself and you'll be able to take care of everybody else. I don't even like that part. Take care of yourself and you're going to put out into the world a lot of good stuff. You're going to put
Yeah.
a lot of love, right? Because you're not overwhelmed. And you had
Yeah.
mentioned before that you liked that I was, you know, looking at my daughter and then exemplifying taking self-care, but I didn't used to do that. And
Yeah.
I became so overwhelmed that I got sick and couldn't get out of bed. So that's where my deep dive into overwhelm, into anything
Wow.
that can help women, came from. Like, I developed an autoimmune disease that I still struggle with. So
Yeah.
it literally took me not being able to get out of bed, not understanding what was happening in my body,
Yeah.
to be like, I am 100% worthy. I'm doing nothing. I'm just laying in bed.
Yes. Yes.
And so what, because I kept thinking, what's the point of this? I can't contribute to the world if I'm laying in bed, right? And I just had this thought come to my mind. The point is, so you understand, you don't have to do anything. Do
Oh,
we
isn't
want
that
to
amazing?
improve our human experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's about. But you don't have to earn it, right? And so I just don't want people to have to get to that point that they're physically ill because they're trying to live up to church expectations, societal expectations,
Yeah.
this storm of thoughts and expectations that we have in our mind.
I love that.
Not
And
necessary.
so, what can you share with us, how you lead a client who is coming to you in overwhelm? Like,
Yeah.
what is your way of helping them to create their own sanctuary of self care, their own sanctuary of a red tent?
Well, I think first of all is um, education and awareness. So we have to
Definitely.
uncover first, what beliefs do they have, right? And a
Yeah.
belief is a thought that you've just gathered a ton of evidence for. So we have to, like, I always consider a box in your mind labeled whatever. Okay, my beliefs about self care or whatever.
Yeah.
And the more evidence that's in there, the more heavy the box is, the more hard it is to shift to a new belief. Um, but we have to uncover those first. So I use a self-coaching model, but I also ask a lot of questions. I listen a lot, because though this concept is going to apply to everybody, the way that the verbiage in their mind is, the way that they word their thoughts,
Hmm.
their beliefs are different. And different thoughts are causing different people different problems and different beliefs. So we uncover that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And usually this is the most obvious when it's coming up, like how I mentioned that my client said, I was doing well this week and then I wasn't, and then they shut it down.
Yeah.
Um, so it's educating them on what's happening. And I ask them, I say, first of all, I ask about, and then I also ask about the menstrual component, because some people it's not that applicable to. They're like, I'm on birth control, I don't have periods, or I'm just not a very emotional person, or whatever it is. So that's an element. So we just uncover first, become aware of what's the limiting beliefs, and take a look at them. And often, as you know, when you're looking at them, they're kind of ridiculous. We're like, I didn't even know I was thinking that. I didn't know I had that expectation. You can't stop living an expectation unless you're aware that it exists
I agree.
and aware of what problem it's causing in your life. So we look at that. And then we get
Yeah.
creative and curious, and we practice little by little. Like, what's the main one? Let's start there. And the self-care component is kind of included with that. But first, they really have to understand that this is causing a problem for them. Because it's not about relieving all overwhelm in our lives. It's about anything and everything we can do to relieve it, right? So even if
Yeah.
we do a quarter of it or a half of it, like, that's huge.
Yeah. That totally is. And so once you do uncover some of their limiting beliefs, Then what? Like, what's the next step then?
Then the next step is, well, what do you, how, well, first, you uncover the beliefs and see what it's creating in their lives.
Yeah.
It's creating not just the feeling of overwhelm, but what is the emotion of overwhelm? How do
Mhm.
they act when they feel it? And what is it keeping them from doing that they want to
Yeah.
do, that they need to do? Because you get stuck right there, right? Overwhelm just shuts you down.
Yeah.
And so when you can understand that, so just imagine this. If you are like my client and you have a week where everything's going well and one that's kind of harder, and then you're just like, I can't do anything this week, then you give up. What if every woman understood, oh, wait, yeah, that makes sense. I'll be back on track on Thursday because I've been tracking my period so well and I'm
Yeah.
going to take care of myself. How many goals would not be stopped? How many amazing things would we accomplish just by knowing that? So we look at the result, and then we have to be really deliberate about what you want to create, and then believing that's possible. So it's a process of awareness and education and results, and then creating strategies to get that result that you want,
Yeah.
planning for
And
obstacles and things like that.
and it sounds like one of the things that could be a limiting belief, that is an underlying limiting belief, is like it's either all or nothing, right? Like I'm either all
Yeah,
in, or what's the point? Like I've
right.
stopped. So forget it.
What's so
So that's
funny, sorry,
no, no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just going to say, what's so funny is that we'll look back and we'll say, um, this always happens to me. And I want to say, why aren't we saying, well, yeah, because it's our cycle.
I
But we're
know.
saying, this always happens to me. I'm not consistent. It's just so funny.
As if
Anyway, I'm
it's
sorry to interrupt.
as if it's a fault, versus no, this is just part of like the cycle of life. This is the
Yeah.
cycle of living.
Yeah.
Is that this is just what happens. I love that, is just coming to realize, wait a minute, this has nothing to do with who you are inherently.
No,
And it's so
nothing.
easy as women that we do make it mean something about who we are inherently.
Yes. I think a lot of women wake up feeling like anxious and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And that just makes me sad. And just, I have so much empathy for that I'm like, what if we could wake up and know that like everything will fall into place, everything's okay. But we don't. We wake up with all these expectations, and already before we get out of bed, we're not enough. We've already proved it in our head that we've got so much to do and we probably won't accomplish it. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. And and chances are we probably do have a long list on our to-do list, right?
yeah, yeah, sure.
Um, but then I think that the question would be is, are you making the accomplishment of the to-do list mean something about you? Like your
Mm,
own worth, your own level of ability, versus I am a mom, I am a woman, I am a daughter, I'm a sister, I am loved no matter what.
mhm.
And I hope I will get these things done. And if I don't,
So what?
okay, so
That's
what?
fine. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
day two.
Yeah. Yeah. I sometimes tell my husband what's going on in my head. And I'm like, do you ever think that? And he's like, no, never. I'm like, what is that like? What is that like?
I don't know.
I'm just like, what? So, we just, and I hate to stereotype, but we just have unique struggles. And the struggle is real.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I just had a thought that just come into my mind. Not saying this is doctrine in any way, and you can totally disagree with me on this, and my listeners can disagree with me on this. But sometimes I wonder, actually, this thought just came up, is that they knew, like our heavenly parents knew our capacity. Like we are doers. We want to get it done. Like we are doers. Like I just think it's just
Yes,
inherent in us, right? And
sure.
they also knew that, hey, they need to slow down or they're going to burn themselves up. So,
Yes.
what if a menstrual cycle, like any other cycle, is kind of a downtime season in our lives? It's kind of like the winter,
Yes.
right? Where we just
Winter
kind of
or
like,
yes.
you know how we just kind of like hunker down and we just get into our blanket and we get the fireplace on and we watch a movie and we pop some popcorn and we have slippers on and we just don't think about anything. Does that make
Yes, which
sense?
is
Like, is that, I'm
totally.
not saying that that is doctrine at all, but I just wonder if in their wisdom, they're just like, they need a break.
Oh, yeah, and we're not listening. I think
And we're
our
not
heavenly parents,
listening.
something that I've really adopted is like I 100% believe if Jesus was sitting next to me, he'd be like, "Can you tell everybody to chill out? Like, just this, like it's fine." And I think that he would say being human is hard, and I get
Yeah.
that. And this is about an experience, and it's very difficult just existing.
Yes.
For me, sometimes I feel like just getting through the day, sometimes depending on what's going on, is a win. Like choosing to get up every day and to take care of your kids. And here's another thing I've been thinking of. You keep triggering all these thoughts, but is how many women discount what they do just because they do it every day. And they
So
discount, yeah, they discount what they do because they're good at it. For instance, one time, if you go on my Instagram, I think I calculated it once, approximately how many meals I cooked for my family.
yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Why are we not like, man, I'm so amazing.
I know.
Thousands of meals for my family, but we do it every day. So it's not, whatever. I don't cook every day, by the way, everybody. No, I'm like, I love that every time I go through a drive through, I'm like, how cool is it? It's like magic. I can pull up and get food for my family. Good job, Jody. I mean, but it's just
Sweet.
so interesting. Right. Like, I was preparing this webinar recently, as I'm
Uh-huh.
sure you were doing. Um, but and it is about being an overwhelmed disciple, by the way. This
Yeah.
really means a lot to me, the overwhelm topic.
I love it.
And I said out loud, I was like, I didn't get anything done today. And my husband's like, you just created a whole presentation to help a whole bunch of people. And I'm like, yeah, but that's easy for me. And he's like, what does that have to do with it?
Okay, there's some wisdom there, right? There is some
What
wisdom
does that have
there.
to do with it?
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's triggering so many other
I know.
thoughts. Do we have time?
You
Let's see
guys
what time.
ready for
We
a
have time.
5-hour
Oh
podcast
my
episode?
God, I know. Well, okay, this is the thing. And okay, let's go back to like you were saying how the things that we do every day we don't give ourselves credit for. Think of how many forks you've washed. Think of how many spoons you've washed. Think of how many
Yes.
plates, cups, sippy cups, bottles,
Smelly sippy
bowls,
cups.
all of that. Like
Well,
how many?
yeah, it's crazy. Now think about this. I was recently coaching a client and she turned off her camera. She was nursing at the same time. And she was like, I just feel like I don't do enough. I'm like, you are literally giving nutrients from your body into this child.
That's all you're supposed to do.
And and this one thing, you're sustaining life. Like it's just funny. And one of my favorites is how many I love yous do you think you've said to your children? And how do you measure the impact and stability that provides a human? Because there's a lot
Yeah.
of humans out there who don't have that.
Yeah.
It has ramifications. So sometimes I have to do actually I do this quite a lot. At the end of the day, I add things that I did. And I'm like, oh, I did this and I did, and then I check them off. Because you cannot access your own inner power unless you're aware that it's there to begin with. Because you're doing powerful things all the time with lots of evidence
Yes.
that you're powerful. So if you want to be more powerful, start tracking everything that you do.
Yes. I
Yeah, it's
love
there.
that. So good. And then just also now going to what your husband said, where he's like, you just did a webinar. That's enough. Like he's basically saying, that's enough. You don't need to prove anymore. Like that's great.
Yes,
And I think
exactly.
that's the same message that you're saying to your clients. Like you're literally keeping this child from dying. Like you're giving it sustenance and
From
nutrition.
your own body.
Yes, from your own body. Your body is doing it without you having to like consciously say, okay, now body, start creating milk. Like you're not even doing that. It just knows. It
Yes.
inherently knows to
Yes.
And that is in itself
But it
is a
doesn't count.
miracle.
Doesn't count, Hio, because it just happens, right?
I know.
Being sarcastic
I know.
because
I know. No,
it's
I
just
know.
so I'm like, did that come out wrong? But
No.
it's so true.
Yes.
And it really has, and everything that I'm saying today has changed my life, right?
Yeah.
And not everything like will appeal to everybody, but I hope they get one thing because it really has changed me to keep track. And that goes back to societal conditioning, especially religious conditioning,
Yeah.
that is um selfish and egotistical to keep track of the good things that you do. But I'm telling you, you want to access God's power and your power, that's necessary.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you on that. And that like I the scripture that's coming up for me is the one, I don't know where it is, but it's the one where even God knows when a sparrow falls. Like he just
Yes.
is that detail oriented, you know?
Yes.
Like he sees what you do on a daily basis. Whether it's the same thing if you wake up, you get the kids up, you get their breakfast going, you get their lunch going, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, the chips, the juice box, the fruit snack, and then that's it. You know what I'm saying? And then you take them to school, you come back, you clean up, and then we do it all over again. Like he sees all of that. And that's all
Yes.
sacred to him. Like, how would it not be sacred to him that you are you are being a mother, whatever that looks like?
Yes.
And maybe it looks like, hey, I'm going to drop my kid off at the daycare and then I go to work and I come back and I pick him up. We have dinner, we do homework, then we put him to bed. Like motherhood is going to look so different. But that's the whole point is it's
Yes.
meant to look different and it all counts. It all
And
counts.
yes, it all counts. And I think another shift that might help people is like that think of yourself as a child. You still have the human privilege of messing up and having love from your parents. Your heavenly parents love perfectly. When you think about your
Yes.
kids, do you only love them and support them and work for them for their benefit when they're accomplishing all day, every day? No. And so when I think about if me as a very imperfect parent
Yeah.
unconditionally loves my children the best that I can
Yeah.
and doesn't expect this, like, them to accomplish everything and be everything and
Yeah.
whatever. And if you do have those expectations, I have compassion for you, and that's a whole other episode. Um, but just putting myself in the place of a child, because we're like dumb toddlers toddling around down here. We don't even know even a iota of like what is really going on. And that's how our heavenly parents see us. They see us as not as dumb toddlers, but they see us
Yeah.
as like children.
Yes.
They're trying. And I really do believe he would say existing as a human is hard. Don't add this unnecessary suffering. Yes, it's the shift from I have to do all this to I don't
Mhm.
have to do anything. Therefore, I'm going to do these amazing things because I want to. This is the human
Yes.
experience I want to have, not because I have to do it.
I love that. I love that shift from having to, needing to, shoulding to I want to, and this is my ideal, this is my desire.
Yeah.
And just and making decisions from that place. And so as you have gone through your own journey of overwhelm and coming to like really looking inward as to like where that's coming from, how has that how has that helped you to I'm trying to think how to word this question. How has that helped you to connect with God in a way that
Mm,
you couldn't before?
that's a wonderful question. I mean, like I said before, I don't think because I have ADHD as well, it's very hard for my brain to slow down. And I think I needed to be forced to slow down to really
Mm,
to really see I really am doing so many things that just don't matter, or not that they don't matter, but they don't they're totally unnecessary.
yeah.
And I slowed down long enough to I was forced, like people are taking care of me because they had to. So I was forced to ask my kids, can you bring me this? Can you bring me that? Right.
Got it.
And I have something to say that I don't know if do you ever have something you just know that's hard to put into words? Well, I was driving one day during all
Yeah.
of this illness when I was getting used to it.
Yeah.
And I just had this thought, just had such an impact on me. And it was like Christ was watching me. And I felt that in his mind, I already won.
So
I
good.
don't need to be trying to be enough and do my best and all these things because of him, I've already won. And I'm just on this earth to learn. And um, I don't know how to explain how that impacted me, but I was in this place because of having been broken down, literally, physically, mentally, and emotionally, to being vulnerable and open to maybe thinking of God and Christ in different ways than I wasn't before. And I think that opened me to be able to see that I can't mess this up. And I don't think that's a popular thing to say in religious culture. I can't mess this up. But that is the impression I had. And it was Overwhelm that kind of made me slow down long enough to see that I'm requiring so many things in myself that I don't need to. And I can say no. And I don't need to worry that God's going to be upset or disappointed in me. That's not the way it works. And so it just impacted me in a lot of ways. It made me slow down. It made me really have to think differently and creatively about how to live my life, how to take care of myself. And even just like with the brain fog that I have limited brain power, I have limited brain energy. So I had to get really
Yeah.
good at what matters most.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it just understanding my own worth, that it wasn't tied to anything I do or don't do. I think that granted me more access to the spirit. I think I was being blocked a little bit, a lot, because I was just trying to earn it. And that's why I'm not a big fan of, I say it all the time too, but your best and enough. Okay. How do you measure what is your best? I wish that phrase would just
Good
go away.
question. Yeah.
Like and it's said in church, it's said in society all the time with good intention. Do your best. I hate it. I hate that
It's like,
because
how do
it's
you
like,
measure that? There's no
how
way
do you ever know?
yeah.
You will never meet that expectation. How about we say things instead? What could we say instead? We could say, like, every day you get up and say, I'm going to have a human experience today. Wonder what it's going to be. I don't need to
Yeah.
prove anything. I don't need to earn anything. I'm excited to see what's coming.
I love that because you're coming from a place of curiosity, but you're also inviting Christ to come in and
Mm-hmm.
just surprise you
Yes, I
with
love
a
that too.
human
The way you just
experience,
worded that,
right?
to surprise you. Yes.
And maybe
Yes.
when we're so busy in doing the doing part, we don't leave a gap to let God in
Mm-hmm.
for his miracles and him showing up for us.
Mm-hmm. Even though
I
we
feel
think
like,
we're doing what's right and
yes.
what we should be doing,
Yeah.
but the way we're thinking about it is actually keeping us from understanding the whole point and
Yeah.
finding that peace that is available.
I love
So
that.
fascinating, right? It's
It
just
is. It is. And something that this reminds me of something that came up for me a couple of days ago of just, you know, I'm just is that we sense the gap, and I'm putting this in air quotes, gap between us and God, right? And we're thinking that
mm-hmm.
we have to cover the ground to close the gap. But
Yes,
I was
right. That
thinking,
is what
what if,
we have.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I was thinking, well, what if we just let the gap be there and let God fill it? Now, that doesn't mean we absolutely do nothing. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But it's like inviting him into our life, inviting him and say, I'm going, like, I love how you said, today I'm going to wake up and I'm a mom. And as a mom, I want to have a human experience. I wonder what's going to happen today.
Mm-hmm.
And invite our Savior, invite our heavenly parents to come in and to fill that perceived gap with their presence.
Yeah. which is already available to us, right?
which is already available. We're not even like earning it. We're just like living this human experience that we all decided to have. That's it.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it sounds too simple. And because of our society, the hustle culture, it feels wrong to say, I don't have to do anything to earn this amazing love. And you probably already know this and see this in your clients all the time and in yourself, that it's when you accept that you don't have to do anything to earn your worth that you give more to the world, actually. It,
Yeah.
because you're not pressured, you don't have cognitive dissonance, you don't get stuck because there's flow.
Yeah. Oh, I love that word flow.
And I remember before I got sick, well, when I got sick, I was laying in bed and I would think, how did this happen? I was doing what was right.
Mm,
So I was young women's president. My husband was in medical residency. I had 3 kids. I had a job. I had someone I love who was going through addiction. I was helping, and I literally just got broke. And I don't know if that's the right word or a good word to use, but and so I laid in bed and I was like, I was doing everything. I was doing what's right. Air quotes again. What you would think, like in church, like these are the things that you do what's right. Well,
yes.
clearly I wasn't. Clearly I needed to learn to say no, and that there are seasons in our lives
Mhm.
that we all have different abilities and different gifts, and um we're not going to be able to do that, like for instance the same calling every day for the rest of our lives. There will be times you may need to say no. There will be times when your calling is your life. I think that our life is our calling. So it I think that that concept of doing what's right needs to be looked at, and it can actually contribute to, depending on your beliefs about that. um
Yeah.
it led to my overwhelm.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think of it as like just like you said, dropping into flow, dropping into your
Mm-hmm.
spiritual being, and just finding the wisdom in there. Like, what is it asking? What is it wanting to do? Because I just
Yeah.
believe that we came down to this earth with a spirit that has all the tools we need, all the gifts that we need to navigate this life, and just dropping into our spirit and asking, okay, what is it? What is it you want to do?
Yeah.
What is the desire that is in there? What's the spiritual desire that I want to manifest out into this universe?
Yeah.
Because and what if that's the compass that we're meant to like really follow?
Right. And when we understand that we've already won because of Christ, we can't
Yes.
really
Oh,
and,
I love
and our
that.
clientele, I'm speaking, like, we're not working with people who just don't care. Obviously, the fact that they're listening or that they're getting coaching, they care. So
They do
when we
care.
say like you're not going to mess it up, doesn't mean you're not going to mess up. It just means you're good. I think that Christ wants us to proceed in our lives as if we don't have to earn, we already won, right? And when we fully understand that, we understand that our worth isn't tied to our actions, then we are, it's not that the spirit just comes out of nowhere. It's that that block is away. Like it takes away the block. And I don't know if this is appropriate or
Share it.
if it will make sense. What'd you say?
Share it. Come on. Don't
Let's do
hold
it.
back. Come on,
No,
Jody.
it's not. It is appropriate. But like, as a coach, one thing I think is the more that we learn to effectively manage our mind and our thoughts, it's like the veil is thinner. And we
Yes.
have like a closeness that is already available to us, a conduit to heaven. But we have to be still and understand some fundamental things first,
You know what?
which is hard.
I can testify of that. No, I'm serious. I could testify of so many times where the veil was very thin or removed because I allowed myself to be still.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is so true. Like
Yeah.
so, so true. So I'm totally there with you. And so one last question. So what does it mean to lead with grace when it comes to overwhelm and finding space in your life to rest?
How do you lead with grace? How are you defining grace?
That's a good question. How would you define it?
Well, let's think. I think grace from a Christ-like perspective is giving yourself room to mess up confidently. And I think that that's a gift that we've been given. So those are aspects of grace. But I think, what now that's coming to me, I think what I said about moving forward, knowing with having 100% confidence like Christ has in you,
Yeah.
that you've won. So you no longer have to try to earn to close that gap, right?
Yeah.
It's already done. It's already
It's already
done.
done.
So I think that that is the grace that is from Christ. And if we can lead with that understanding in our own lives, our human experience is going to be so great. And we can also be a leader by exemplifying that to other people.
I love
So I
it.
don't know if that made sense, but I think grace is a gift. And the wonderful thing about grace is that it's a gift to us, and then it's allows us to be a gift to others too. So I think that's one of the things, one of the ways you could lead with grace, knowing
I
you've
love,
won.
yeah, and that totally makes sense to me. And I love all those words that you're using about that we've won, and that, you know, he's already filled the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a done deal. We don't have to earn any of it. I love all of that. And so if any of my listeners want to get in contact with you, how can they do that? How can they work with you?
You can just go to jodylong.com, JODYLONG. And then I'm on Instagram, Jody Long Coaching, and same thing for Facebook. And you can email me at jody@jodylong.com. But I think the easiest one to remember is jodylong.com. It's pretty simple, and there's a work with me
Yeah.
button, and there's other things resources you can find there. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you so much for getting on here. I mean, I I just feel like, okay, I have like 20 other questions in my brain, but we're going to end the podcast episode right
Okay.
now. But I've I have been lifted and taught and nourished just talking to you during this podcast episode, and just really looking at my own thoughts and how I can really take care of myself without having to justify it, and to know that I am worthy 100% of the time, all the time, no matter what. And so I'm so grateful for that message that you are trying to share with other women and with my listeners. So thank you again. And maybe we'll have you on again, Jody.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Bye.